So the first set of photographs from, apparently, the set of Superman Legacy have been released, and well, the costume, well, at least for people taking a look at the comic, it's like they're relatively happy with it, okay? Looks, David Cornsweet, the guy who takes over for Henry Cavill, he definitely looks the part, but then upon further inspection, like for as much as we knew about the initial table read of the script that, the Kingdom Come Superman S, that's going to be the logo that they're going with. Kind of, you can read into that as you want, but as people were looking at the rest of the costume, they were taking a look as to what exactly is the background that they're doing back there. Why is it that he looks so plasticky? Why does the cameraman hold his camera upside down, and why are his pants on backwards? Why is there a random ring light that's right there? Why are they moving and nothing else is? Oh, because it's totally fake, and a lot of people were sharing these when they first got released, because there was another prominent post that went on at the time. But if anybody ever gets taken for one of these, goof posts, just take a look at who's posting it to begin with. The latest parody comments. Yeah, it looks exactly like the Culture Crave Twitter account, who posts a lot of different scoops, okay? Like, yeah, it's easy to get duped, but come on, man, just do a little bit of cursory analysis on this one. You already seen the logo that's out there. The costume looked reasonably good. You got the tidy whiteys on the outside, or tidy reddies in this case, okay? Cornsweat's got the little curl as well. Things are looking on the up and up, but no. Gonna have to wait a little bit longer, right? The reason that it was so viable that could have been set pictures that ended up leaking out is because on the same day, James Gunn announced that, oh yeah, we're filming, everything's go. It is the appropriate day to make this announcement on February 29th, canonically Clark Kent's official birthday, and here's the actual logo and a little bit of the costume, a little bit of the suit that you can see as well, and it's got the yellow border around it, and it still has that same Kingdom Come S that's on there, which is an incredible storyline, but not exactly something that lines up canonically with James Gunn's vision for what Superman's going to be about in his reboot. There's red flags abound with all of this stuff, and I'm not going to pretend to be a comic book expert. I like Superman, okay? I like the old Christopher Reeves films. Man of Steel is hilarious. I think somewhere in the background you can still hear that boring-ass Superman Returns playing in the background, because that was a film that just would not end, and never really caught any of the television incarnations of Kal-El. But at this point in time where everybody's digging through the more nihilistic aspects of superheroes or working through deconstructions of it, if we could just have like a good old-fashioned truth, justice, and the American way Superman, that would probably be a breath of fresh air, for as corny as some people might think it is. I don't know, just having like a real superhero instead of an ironic superhero. Could we do that? Is that something that we can look forward to next year? James, okay, are you going to do this right, or are you just going to fumble the bag right out the get-go? But he posts this on Leap Day. Overjoyed to be announcing the start of principal photography on Superman today, February 29th, which just so happens to be, coincidentally and unplanned, Superman's birthday. Hey man, that's great. When I finished the first draft of the script, I called the film Superman Legacy. By the time I locked the final draft, it was clear the title was Superman. Oh, okay, making its way to you July 2025. So now, guess what? It's no longer Superman Legacy. It is simply Superman. Gets a title change from James Gunn. The filmmaker shared the news on the first day of filming, as you can see, citing that Instagram post that's right there. Warner Brothers has a July 11th, 2025 date for the film, which marks the first solo Superman project in more than a decade, following, yes, a hilarious Man of Steel. Krypton had its chance. Where did you learn how to fight? On a farm? There's so many great memes that came out of that absolute abomination, but it's interesting that they want to call this a solo Superman project, and given the fact that James Gunn can't write solo films anymore, that he just simply makes these ensemble things, even when you have quite possibly at least top 3 marquee superheroes, you can't even make a standalone film because you got to introduce everybody else. Listen, when it comes to the Daily Planet crew, totally fine with that. Having Jimmy Olsen makes sense, okay? Having Perry White Okay, makes sense. Having Lois Lane, that all makes sense. Have the villain, set him up that way. Bring in your very well cast Lex Luthor. Okay, just have him as the overarching villain for whatever story you're going to continue to tell with the Superman that you're just establishing in your brand new DCU. I like all that stuff. But bringing in Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, Green Lantern, for God's sakes, Hawk Girl, what are you doing? Are you trying to turn Superman into Guardians of the Galaxy? Also the Suicide Squad? You didn't have the in front of yours. Or maybe you did. I don't know. It was so goddamn forgettable. But hey, your wife needed the work, and John Cena's a real charismatic actor. Blow me. But for as much praise as I've heaped on for, the Jimmy Olsen casting, he looks like Jimmy Olsen. The Lois Lane casting, Superman casting, it's all been great. Lex Luthor, as previously mentioned, very good casting. Perry White, he's been race swapped. Lawrence Fishburne was Perry White back in the Snyderverse, and all of the biggest detractors of James Gunn just immediately hate him off rip. Love Zack Snyder, and just tend to go silent when you point that out. And Wendell Pierce has good presence for being the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet. So not bad casting, but trying to bring in so many characters, it's interesting, right? Because I think we all know, everybody who's pointed it out, that if this DCU, this 8-year-long plan that James Gunn has that looks absolutely abysmal, if it starts off with a dud, everything's done. And I'm not cheering for a failure. I want a good Superman film. I haven't been alive for a good Superman film. Will this be it? I don't know, man. I really don't know, because I've also raised the flag on a multitude of other projects that are also falling into these trappings, and it's really not great, because I see stuff like this and the phrase "too big to fail" immediately starts to course through my mind. And for as much damage control as James Gunn is running, I don't really know if this is going to be too far off the mark. James Gunn tackles Superman Legacy budget rumor that it would make it the second most expensive superhero movie ever. Behind the runaway train that was Avengers Age of Ultron. But there was another rumor that was going around out there saying that the budget was going to be for a bunch of no-name characters, $364 million? But James Gunn has said that's obviously not the case. Absolutely not. How in the world do they think they know what our budget is? That's interesting, though, okay? Because I think we can comfortably say, based on its contemporary films, would anybody be surprised if this thing cost that much money? That's probably what made it so believable. And with everybody else pointing out that, wow, these big budget films, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, because if this thing is at that level, it has to make $1 billion to break even. And companies have been doing this for the past few years. And guess what, guys? Companies don't spend hundreds of millions of dollars to make millions or to lose money. Like, these big budget tentpole theatrical releases aren't supposed to be loss leaders. You're not putting those out there in order to get people familiar with the studio so that you can make money on an indie project. This is not how this stuff works. But I digress. Superman Legacy, the former Superman Legacy, director James Gunn addressed a recent DC Universe rumor about the new movie's supposed budget. Gunn's DCU is closer to ever to finally getting started, as we have confirmation that the film is now being, principal photography has commenced, and everything seems to point to that July 2025 release date. Starring David Cornsweet, the new Man of Steel, Superman, will be the first proper DC Universe movie from DC Studios, while Creature Commandos will be premiering as the first TV show in the franchise on Max later this year. It's kind of interesting because Peacemaker, the John Cena vehicle, is apparently also making the transition from the EU. Well, actually, it was just kind of in limbo when that was first shot. Season 2 is going to canonically be a part of... Again, this is something that's, has James Gunn's wife attached to it, so of course it's going to get carried over. This week marks the official start of the Legacy. For the cast, yes. However, before the cameras even started to roll, we had these very legitimate, very obviously leaked photographs from the set. I just, of course, this time about the film's budget. Read it out before, asked by Adam Ambro if it was true that Superman Legacy budget was reportedly $364 million. Gunn stated, absolutely not. How in the world do you think they know what our budget is? Well, It's kind of interesting because now he uses Threads like an absolute creep, mostly because he kind of got temporarily canceled from Marvel because of some of his spicier Twitter posts, so I understand the aversion of using the platform. But the link that they send out is of tax filings that show $364 million as the operating budget. Now, that's where they're at right now. But they're doing a lot of principal photography. They're doing a lot of the filming in Ohio. So they're going to be getting tax credits for filming domestically and in the state of Ohio. And that's been in place there for a while to incentivize filmmakers to, take advantage of the landscape. And as Clark Kent is a good old Kentucky boy, you want that Midwest aesthetic. Ohio, some of the more rural areas, definitely fits that. So if you can get the tax incentives on that, fantastic. If you can go ahead and break down that verified, IRS certified $364 million via tax credits, you're still sniffing about $300 million in, on, and around that area. And of course, this is launching your universe. This is the first official film. This is a Superman film. This is the return to the cinema for the first time in over a decade for America's Boy Scout. Don't think that the marketing budget isn't going to be at least the same as the production budget, if not more. This thing, by the time it's all said and done, could be the most expensive film ever. I don't think that that's off the table. Like, we don't know enough about it right now. All we know is that principal photography is starting, and if it's a smooth production schedule, it might bode well for the franchise. If everything's been planned out, if James Gunn has been working on the script, redrafting the script, working intensely with the cast, could be good. I hope it is, okay? I don't want anybody to say to the contrary that I'm rooting for this to fail. Superman Legacy had truly has a budget of $364 million. It would have ended up being one of the most expensive superhero films of all time when looking back at the past 2 decades of superhero movies. The last 3 Avengers installments, you see this a little bit more justified, okay, are currently conquering the top 3 spots: Age of Ultron, Endgame, and Infinity War. Yeah, kind of makes sense, except for Age of Ultron being somewhere in on and around $500 million. Like, what the hell, man? But yeah, Endgame and Infinity War, $400 million on the top end. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like, just take a look at the cast of characters that are there, with the repeated entries into the franchise and with their budgets are okay. And then with their guarantees continuing to creep up and up and up and up, with the likes of Robert Downey Jr. getting how many millions of dollars per appearance? Same with Chris Evans, same with Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, very much so. It makes sense why that film cost so much. Age of Ultron, everything that you hear about that, it was an entire nightmare. So yeah, I guess that's what happens when things get out of control. And then yes, the original Justice League, again, the gigantic catastrophe. Spooderman 3, I'm starting to sense a pattern. Yeah, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Yeah, when you had to shoehorn in Batman because we need to compete with Captain America, Civil War. Oh no, it was the other way around. Civil War wanted to compete with Dawn of Justice, but one of those films was good and the other one was produced by Legendary. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, again, another disaster, but then yes, Civil War with its late-stage rewrites. Wow, you see a constant through line. Dark Knight Rises, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Another James Gunn outing, and Dark Knight Rises, one of the films that made me stop media full stop, which was also completely rewritten and was a nightmare to conclude that legendary franchise. Given the box office disappointments in all the DCEU films in 2023, hey, Aquaman 2 was the best performing one. It was the tallest midget in the crowd. Warner Brothers, Discovery, and DC Studios will likely be very careful about what budget Superman Legacy ends up flying with throughout production. But then you can also tack on this additional story. I covered this a few weeks ago as well. Tom Cruise taking a much more prominent role within Warner Brothers, and he's been known to be, quite frugal when it comes to spending. I mean, he's always out there lobbying for higher budgets, but he does put it to good use. So Warner Brothers opening up the purse strings, even though they are incredibly deep in debt and looking to merge with anybody who's willing to take on their gigantic debt burden, is going to be interesting, man. Okay, in everything that I see about this, like I said, I want it to succeed, but is it going to? I legitimately don't know, because there's so many good stories to tell with all of those DC characters, and the fact that we haven't even scratched the surface on it, with the entire superhero trend completely passing us by, is one of those missed opportunities in all of cinematic history that's going to be a gigantic gigantic failing on the company. And, you know, once the stupid Rebel Moon finally gets its full release, we'll be able to properly have this conversation that Zack Snyder has always been a hack and that he deprived us of so many great stories. But here's hoping James Gunn makes a great film, because for the sake of the DCU, he's going to need something transcendent. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.